Spiral Jetty is an earthwork sculpture constructed in April 1970 that is considered to be the central work of American sculptor Robert Smithson. Smithson documented the construction of the sculpture in a 32-minute color film also titled Spiral Jetty. Built on the northeastern shore of the Great Salt Lake near Rozel Point in Utah entirely of mud, salt crystals, basalt rocks and water, Spiral Jetty forms a 1,500-foot-long, 15-foot-wide counterclockwise coil jutting from the shore of the lake. The water level of the lake varies with precipitation in the mountains surrounding the area, revealing the jetty in times of drought and submerging it during times of normal precipitation. Originally black basalt rock against ruddy water, Spiral Jetty is now largely white against pink due to salt encrustation. Since the initial construction of Spiral Jetty, those interested in its fate have dealt with questions of proposed changes in land use in the area surrounding the sculpture and of the proper amount of preservation, if any. Description: Spiral Jetty is an earthwork sculpture constructed in April 1970 on the northeastern shore of the Great Salt Lake near Rozel Point in Utah. The sculpture is built of mud, precipitated salt crystals, basalt rocks, and water. The sculpture forms of a 1,500-foot-long, 15-foot-wide counterclockwise coil jutting from the shore of the lake. The sculpture is sometimes visible and sometimes submerged, depending upon the water level of the Great Salt Lake. Construction: Smithson reportedly chose the Rozel Point site based on the blood-red color of the water and its connection with the primordial sea. The red hue of the water is due to the presence of salt-tolerant bacteria and algae that thrive in the extreme 27% salinity of the lake's north arm, which was isolated from freshwater sources by the building of the causeway by the Southern Pacific Railroad in 1959. Smithson was reportedly attracted to the Rozel Point site because of the stark anti-pastoral beauty and industrial remnants from nearby Golden Spike National Historic Site, as well as an old pier and a few unused oil rigs. While observing the construction of the piece from a helicopter, Smithson reportedly remarked "A in Utah Ego" as a counterpoint to the pastoral Baroque painting "A in Arcadia Ego" by Nicholas Poussin. To move the rock into the lake, Smithson hired Bob Phillips of Parsons Construction of nearby Ogden, Utah, who used 2 dump trucks, a large tractor, and a front-end loader to haul the 6,650 tons of rock and earth into the lake. It is reported that Smithson had a difficult time convincing a contractor to accept the unusual proposal. Spiral Jetty was the first of his pieces to require the acquisition of land rights and earth-moving equipment. He began work on the jetty in April 1970. Construction took 6 days. Visibility: the sculpture becomes submerged whenever the level of the Great Salt Lake rises above an elevation of 4,195 feet. At the time of Spiral Jetty's construction, the water level of the lake was unusually low due to drought. Within a few years, the water level returned to a normal level, submerging the jetty for the next 3 decades. In 2002, the area experienced another drought, lowering the water level in the lake and revealing the jetty for a second time. The jetty remained completely exposed for almost a year. During the spring of 2005, the lake level rose again due to a near-record-setting snowpack in the surrounding mountains, partially submerging the sculpture. In spring 2010, lake levels receded and the sculpture was again walkable and visible. As of late June 2011, runoff from a record snowpack has again completely submerged the jetty. Current conditions fluctuate, but as of July 2014, the jetty is above water and visible. Financing and ownership: the sculpture was financed in part by a $9,000 USD grant from the Virginia Dwin Gallery of New York. A 20-year lease for the site was granted for $100 annually. Smithson died in a helicopter crash in Texas 3 years after finishing the jetty. The sculpture has been owned by the state of Utah since June 2011. Previously, the area was leased by the Dye Art Foundation of New York, who acquired the piece by a donation from Smithson's estate in 1999. The Dye Art Foundation is currently seeking a new lease from the state. Preservation: the current exposure of the jetty to the elements and to the ravages of its growing number of visitors has led to a controversy over the preservation of the sculpture. the discoloration of the rocks and the exposure of the lake bed having altered the colors of the original, a proposal has emerged to buttress the sculpture and restore the original colors by the addition of new basalt rocks in the spirit of the original. It is expected that without such additions, the sculpture will be submerged again once the drought is over. The issue has been complicated by ambiguous statements by Smithson, who expressed an admiration for entropy and that he intended his works to mimic earthly attributes in that they remain in a state of arrested disruption and not be kept from destruction. In 2008 it was announced that there were plans for exploratory oil drilling approximately 5 miles from the jetty. The news was met with strong resistance from artists, and the state of Utah received more than 3,000 emails about the plan, most opposing the drilling. Film. In 1970, during the construction of the jetty, Robert Smithson wrote and directed a 32-minute color film, Spiral Jetty. The film was shot by Smithson and his wife Nancy Holt, and funded by Virginia Dwin and Douglas Christmas. The film documented the construction process and also formed an ancillary artwork. Smithson combines his interest in geology, paleontology, astronomy, mythology and cinema, stating that he had an interest in documenting the Earth's history. In conjunction with filmed sequences of the jetty, Smithson incorporates footage of dinosaurs in a natural history museum and the ripped pages from a history text. During this scene, Smithson refers to the institutions of history. The Earth's history seems at times like a story recorded in a book, each page of which is torn into small pieces. Many of the pages and some of the pieces of each page are missing. Smithson's narrative supports an alternative view of historical discourse and the art object's placement or production outside of the museum institution. His writings also indicate that the helicopter film sequences over the jetty were a method of recapitulating the scale of the jetty. By visually disorienting the viewer, Smithson is able to negate a time and place for the materiality of the artwork or create what he calls a cosmic rupture. Through this state, the viewer is meant to be unable to categorize or classify the site, and will be left in a state free from the dialect of history. References. External links, slideshow, time-lapse video, and QuickTime VR of Spiral Jetty. Directions to the jetty, pictures of Robert Smithson's Spiral Jetty. Review of Smithson's movie about the Spiral Jetty project. Spiral Jetty FLICKR Group, Die Art Foundation page about the jetty, NASA Astronomy picture of the day photograph of the Spiral Jetty, the Spiral Jetty's visibility, archivist on the road, Spiral Jetty, Archives of American Art blog, Smithsonian Institution, Restoring Spiral Jetty, What If? Discussing restoration plans.